So I think that's just kind of been the time for me to like really find some patience, and I've never been a patient person my entire life, so this has definitely tested me a little bit.
They say patience is a virtue, and for Caitlin Clark and Indiana Fever fans, that patience is about to pay off. Clark just gave a big update on her injury, and all signs point to a return that's closer than many expected. But this isn't just about her stepping back onto the court with a quick graphic on the big screen. No, this return could be a major turning point for Clark, for the Fever, and even for the entire WNBA. There's also been some speculation about how her injury happened in the first place. And while nothing is confirmed, if there's truth to what some are saying, we might see an even more driven, more dangerous version of Caitlin Clark going forward. Between her recent comments to the media, the Fever's changing tone, and everything that's happened in the league during her absence, the stage is set for a powerful comeback. This isn't just about one player, it's about a shift in the entire conversation around women's basketball. Records may be broken, expectations will change, and fans, they're more ready than ever. If you believe Caitlin's return will be a game changer, give this video a like and subscribe for all the latest Fever updates. Now, let's take a quick look back at the last few weeks.
Obviously, this game is peaking at 3.2 million viewers is crazy for the WNBA, even for the Fever. So this year's peaks are already freaking higher than last year's peaks when this team was starting to do a bit well.
Before Caitlin Clark went out with a strained quad, she was doing what she does best, delivering standout performances and breaking records.
For New York, Clark, step back three. Oh, she hit it and draws the foul. Welcome back.
The Fever's game against the Liberty drew nearly 3.3 million viewers right after their season opener against the Sky averaged 2.7 million, making it the most watched WNBA regular season game since 2000. In short, the Caitlin Clark effect was in full force. And the craziest part, the Fever weren't even playing all that well.
1 second left. Clark doesn't get the shot off. Cloud locks her up, and New York comes into Indianapolis and takes the checkered flag.
Fever were 2-2 at the time, and while their big win over the Sky made it seem like they were about to take off, it quickly became clear that said more about the Sky's struggles than the Fever's strength. The offense was still a work in progress. Things just weren't clicking. Caitlin was still productive and making plays, but something was off. She didn't have her usual lift or quickness. We'll come back to that. It's important. So when the team announced she'd be out for at least 2 weeks and miss 4 games, fans were naturally worried. But there was still some quiet optimism that the veterans could hold things together, that confidence would be tested. School, after the loss to the Mystics, the Fever's first game without Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham spoke out, and looking back now, her words really meant something. She saw what was coming. But for fans, hoping the team would bounce back quickly, it didn't happen. That game wasn't rock bottom, it was just the start. Things only got worse from there.
I think this was a kind of gut punch for us. We're going to come back tomorrow, practice, more focus, more energy. We know we want to be at the end of the season, but we're not just going to get there. You know, sometimes it sucks and it's a grind, and that's where we're at right now. But I do think short term and long term, it's going to make us better.
Their loss to the Suna team that had started the season 0-5 was humbling. It forced fans and analysts to question everything. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get any worse, they did. In that same game, the Fever lost both Sophie Cunningham and Sydney Colson to injury. That's right, both of Caitlin Clark's primary backups were suddenly gone. The depth chart wasn't just thin, it was shredded. But that's where the story starts to shift. Because sometimes, when 2 doors slam shut, another swings wide open. And this time, it brought in a breath of fresh air the Fever desperately needed.
Inbound to Mitchell, who nearly lost it, retreats, gets up a really tough shot, and Connecticut survives.
Ari McDonald hardship signing, no one saw coming, stepped in and instantly changed the vibe. She brought energy, she brought pace, and most importantly, she reignited the offense. Almost overnight, she became a spark plug and a fan favorite. And now more and more people are saying she shouldn't just be a stopgap, she deserves a real role in this team's future.
And if there's one thing that is a certainty for the Indiana Fever, it's that hold on to Ari McDonald at all costs.
The Fever started to find their rhythm. First, they got revenge on the Mystics, flipping the script from that earlier loss. But then came the big one, the rematch against the Chicago Sky. Played in front of nearly 20,000 roaring fans, and the Fever didn't just win, they sent a message. They dominated. They obliterated the Sky in a statement game that felt like a turning point not just for the season, but for the team's entire identity. School, sure, beating the Sky isn't exactly headline news these days, but this time it was different. The Fever did it without Caitlin Clark, without Sophie Cunningham, and without their head coach, and they still dominated. That's a scary sign for the rest of the league. They didn't just survive. Without Caitlin, they learned how to win. Kelsey Mitchell is heating up. Aaliyah Boston is steady and dominant. Lexi Hull, deadly from three, and making a legit case for most improved. And that's the twist. Caitlin's absence actually made this team stronger. Now, when she comes back, they won't just rely on her, they'll build around her. And if you're a Caitlin Clark fan, there's even more reason to be excited.
And the Indiana Fever has beaten the Chicago Sky by a combined 62 points in 2 games.
Game against the Chicago Sky didn't just ended a popular narrative, that hole there. Only here to see me talk. Gone. Just before tip-off, tickets were selling for as low as $3 cheaper than a small popcorn at the arena. But here's the twist. For the rematch just a few weeks later, demand is ready spiking. Looks like people are definitely paying attention now.
The cheapest ticket for the June 7th showdown is $14, according to Vivid Seats. Oh, there's some even less expensive than that.
And let's be fair, won't go too hard on Angel Reese, but it's worth noting she only scored 4 more points than most of us watching from home.
The cheapest ticket for that game next month is currently at $82, according to Vivid Seats. It gets much worse. Therefore, there's currently an 83% drop between the 2 games.
SB Honestet performance brought the so-called rivalry to a quiet end, right on the biggest stage and in front of the largest crowd. One of the league's most talked about young stars had a rough night, and it didn't go unnoticed. Even with all the media hype, fans aren't buying the usual spin anymore.
What are we doing? What are we doing? Like, the most coddled basketball player in history. She is the 43rd best player in the WNBA. She is, and that is being the most generous I can be coming into this season.
But fam, don't you dare exclude Angel Reese out of that. That is favoritism. Don't show that, man. You need to call Angel Reese out the same way you are willing to call everybody else out.
One thing is now crystal clear: Angel Reese isn't the one driving the league's momentum. This is Caitlin Clark's league, and when she returns and ratings shoot back up, the conversation is over. That's when the WNBA might finally recognize the importance of promoting and protecting its biggest star. Now, speaking of her comeback, and those record-breaking viewership number slits, talk about Caitlin's recent comments, which some say have stirred quiet controversy. Maybe I'm reading into things a bit too much, but there's a theory going around, and I have to admit, it caught my attention. Take a look at this next clip and decide for yourself. Am I onto something or way off the mark? Because when Caitlin was asked point blank about what caused her injury, this is how she answered.
Let me know in the comments if you think I'm onto something or totally off base.
Caitlin said she doesn't remember exactly when the injury occurred, but not everyone is convinced. There's growing speculation that this wasn't a sudden, unexpected injury. Some believe she's been quietly dealing with it for weeks, trying to power through until her body finally said enough. It's the kind of situation that raises more questions than answers, and fans are starting to take notice.
Is this an injury that happened during a game or anything, or is it just something that was lingering that popped up? Or?
It happened in the Liberty game, yeah.
Were you able to pinpoint the time in the Liberty game that happened, or you just?
No, definitely early in the game, but I couldn't tell you the exact play something occurred on. And
that theory actually reflects something positive about Caitlin, and I'll explain why in a moment. But let's be honest, it wouldn't be surprising if there's a bit of damage control going on behind the scenes, because if this injury wasn't just a random in-game if it was something the team already knew about while she continued playing, then that opens up a much bigger conversation.
Happened in the Liberty game, yeah, I don't believe that. She looked 60% in the Liberty game. She looked no better against the Atlanta Dream. And there's no way it happened at the Liberty game. Unless, like, she looked so much better in the second half of the Liberty game as well. I just don't believe it. I just don't believe it.
Caitlin Clark is easily one of the most valuable players in the league right now, both on and off the court. If the Fever knew she was dealing with an injury and still let her play game after game until she couldn't anymore, that's more than just questionably could turn into a major PR issue. Now, I'm not a legal expert, but when you consider Caitlin's competitive drive, the fact that she hasn't quite looked like herself all season, and how much is riding on her success, the concerns start to add up.
If things just go as they were, and we have expanded season of 22 home games with modest inflation, I'm looking at $875 million.
Isn't some far-fetched theory. Riot, just basic damage control. And if that's truly what's happening behind the scenes, it would explain why the details have been kept vague. But here's the encouraging part, and honestly, why I hope there's some truth to it. If Caitlin has been pushing through an injury during these early games, and is now finally taking time to recover, we could be on the verge of seeing her at her absolute best. Think about it, wasn't even at full strength, and she was still putting up strong numbers. Now imagine what she'll do when she's fully healthy. And there's one more detail that supports this theory. Anathor hint that she may have been playing through pain all along.
She hasn't looked really right all year. Like, the Sky game was the Sky game. They destroyed the Sky. Sky were terrible. But outside the Sky game, she hasn't looked right at all. She didn't look right in preseason. She hasn't looked right at all this year.
I think at times the hardest part is like just not being able to be involved in practice. Like, I love practice. Not a ton of people always enjoy like coming to practice every single day, but that's something I like really enjoy. Like, I really enjoy coming out here and like competing every single day with my teammates. Like, that's probably honestly what I miss most. Obviously, I miss the games. That goes for anybody that's ever hurt, but like, I love practice. I love getting better. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a unique perspective, you know, when you're out there playing and actually in the heat of the moment, you don't always realize everything. You don't always see everything. You see things from a different perspective that maybe the coaching staff didn't see. So it's certainly different. So I'm trying to, you know, kind of be that connector between the coaches and then my teammates at the same time, whether, you know, that's in the locker room at halftime, whether that's during timeouts of, you know, things I see from the bench that maybe might be a little bit different of a perspective than maybe our point guard is seeing, or, you know, anybody on the floor. After that, it's, you know, day by day and see how I feel and just kind of turn to the medical staff and what they think. But I feel like I've made a lot of progress and I feel good, and, you know, not going to rush coming back. It's just not